I mean, I was going to ask you because I think a lot of people were planning to be in LA for these couple weeks with all these events going on, and now none of them are happening. So what's that been like for you? I mean, you're still in LA, so clearly you're in town, but what was that shift like for you?
It's strange, isn't it? Because yeah, that's kind of, luckily for us, it's not the only reason. Like, it's the reason we're here this early. I was meant to come out actually about a week earlier, and
Hmm.
then my family was gonna follow out a few days later, because my wife's a film composer and she was recording a score right up until Friday there, so they were going to join me after, but all ended up coming later because things kept getting cancelled and getting postponed.
Have you wrapped your head around the idea of your kids thinking that of you? I find that I have kids as well, and I totally understand worshiping your parents, and I cannot think of myself in that worshipped role. And I don't know if this has helped you kind of wrap your head around that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think they're there yet. But with the worship aspect of it, I don't maybe think they ever will be. I still just think, I mean, our 5-year-old said to me, someone asked her what she wanted to be when she grows up, and she said, "When I grow up, I want to be silly like Daddy." I was like, "That's a pretty great compliment," and I kind of love it. But I think they're getting a pretty strong sense. I mean, my wife and I both work in the same industry, and they see it from both sides. They get to see what mummy does, which is a very cool part of it, and to score films, and she did the score for film I'm in, so they had a great time going up to see how mummy was getting on, trying to enhance Daddy's performance with a bit of a piano here and there or whatever it was. But yeah, it's been nice the last couple of years. I've done a couple of things where I think they've been able to watch,
Hmm.
and they'd be able to see a bit of Belfast. I think maybe
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that it's. I think it'll be a while before they're really kind of thinking it's cool, and maybe they never will. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you feel strongly about what they know about what fame and attention means? Like, do you feel like that's something you have to really navigate for them in terms of what you do?
Yeah, a bit. They're often like, we've made a choice in their very early formative years to live out in the middle of nowhere. We live in the countryside. There's no paparazzi. We're not going to any parties or fancy dinners where we're getting our photograph taken.
Yeah.
We're pretty much out of the limelight for the most part, and we like it that way. Probably harder here when we're in LA, and but they'll have, like, I was with our 5-year-old yesterday, and a girl came up and like wanted to chat on a photograph, and after, my daughter turned around and was like, "Do you know her?"
Totally logical question.
I
It makes
was
perfect
like,
sense.
"I don't know her," and she's like, "Why does she want to talk to you?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Like, some people, the daddy's an actor, and I'm in movies and on TV sometimes, and some people, are like the stuff I do, and they see me and recognize me and want to chat, and it's nothing more than that." And my daughter was like, "Oh, that's nice." So they're basically saying that they like you. It's like,
Yeah.
maybe, I guess it is kind of like that, and so there's an innocence to it all, I guess, at this stage, and I'm very good about, like yesterday she wanted a photograph. I was like, "Can you just make sure that my kids
Yeah.
are in
Yeah.
it, and I'll check it after to make sure that there's not like an ear of my 5-year-old in or anything weird." So, yeah, I think it's a ever-evolving thing that as they get older and their understanding grows of different scenarios and situations, we'll have to sort of play it by ear. But, you know, um, we haven't had anything that's been too dramatic or anything yet, or anything that we've really had to sort of explain to them yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And as your career grows too, and social media changes, like it's such a moving target that you get to figure out what a joy of parenting on top of everything else you have to figure out.
Well,
I think it's fascinating. So Katrina was on the cover of our awards issue, and she talked to my colleague Rebecca Ford about her start in modeling. And I think it's interesting the way you guys both talk about it as having grateful for the experience, but getting to a point where you're like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to stand in front of a camera. But then you both became actors, which is standing in front of a camera. It's very different. But I'm just really interested in why that transition made sense to you, that you were tired of that version of being visible, but chose another way to be visible, but with maybe more expression. Like, why did that feel like the right transition?
one of them I never planned on doing and didn't want to do, and the other one I always probably, if I'm going to be honest, harbored some ambition to do. I'll let you guess which was which. um, so there was something of maybe a dissatisfaction with modeling, even though it was incredibly kind to me. But I was always a bit like, it's not the end game for me, and I don't want it to be. And with all the respect in the world, I didn't want to be doing it in my 30s and my 40s.
Well, it's so hard to. I mean, it's easier for men, but
It's hard
not
to.
easy.
You know what? I actually remember one time, I was at the same agency the whole time, and I remember an agent said to me really early on when I was like, I'd probably been doing it a few years. I was probably 22, 23 or something. And my agent saying, you've got a face that's it'll probably be last you a long time. Like the shape of your face or whatever means that like you, because you get a lot of models who, they're the right look for that moment or whatever. This sort of very angular thing, or like really like insect thin, whatever it is, was like good in that moment. But if you were sort of considered more classically what they want or whatever, then you'd have more longevity. And this sort of agent was explaining to me that like the way my face was, I could get to do it for a long time, into my up to 50 and beyond. And I remember going like, that is awful. Like, that's the last thing in the world that I want to be doing when I'm
it crystallizes the feeling in that one moment.
Totally. And I remember saying, I said this recently during an interview, I remember thinking like, once I started acting more, like I remember going like, I can't wait to be an actor so it doesn't matter what I look like.
When did the news break to you that it might still matter?
But I guess it sort of doesn't matter as much. Like there's emphasis as a model to like just always be, I don't know, well, let's put it this way. In acting, you're usually what is being drawn out are people's flaws or human flaws, what are broken elements. Whereas in modeling, it's all about like looking your best. And if you're worried about looking good as an actor, you're screwed. Like that's not what this game's about,
Yeah.